If you're looking for a timeless piece of cinematography, I would highly recommend the Tina Fey production, Mean Girls. Now, in a perfect world, we would all be able to quote this movie line for line, but if you're unfamiliar with the plot, I shall elucidate a little bit. Mean Girls follows 4 female high school students who are, well, mean. And in one particular scene, they're all standing in front of a mirror, critiquing their own bodies. You see, these girls weren't just mean to other people. They were also mean to themselves. Growing up, my mom always thought she was fat, and she wasn't, but as a teenager, she struggled a lot with body image. So she dedicated the majority of her adult life making sure I never suffered the same fate. My mom is a huge advocate for the idea that value comes from within. But as human beings, we like to look good on the outside too, which can be a little tricky when it comes to women's clothing. Normally we talk about food for thought, but today, let's have some fashion for thought. First, I want to look at women's sizing and figure out why it's so nonsensical and how knowing that can keep you from crying alone, half naked in a Target dressing room. I want to look at pockets and zippers and ask, why aren't there more of them in ready-to-wear clothing? And finally, I'd like to explore the role that the school uniform plays in improving adolescent self-esteem. Because at the end of the day, if your heart and your head are happy, then what you're wearing on the outside cannot take away from that happiness. I'm a soccer player, which means that I haven't skipped leg day since 2006 when I started playing the sport, which means that finding pants that fit me is quite literally a pain in the butt, and the thighs, and the calves. In the article, It's Not You, Women's Clothing Doesn't Make Sense, the author explains that with the rise of brand names, companies took to catering to whom they considered their core customer, meaning that a medium in a brand whose target demographic is 60-year-old women is not the same as a medium at Justice, which sells predominantly to preteen girls. Furthermore, there's something called vanity sizing that only adds to the confusion of women's clothing in general. Designed to make us feel better about our shape, vanity sizing creates clothing that is larger than the tag suggests, meaning that a pair of pants that say size 6 might fit someone who's more of a size 8, so I don't actually know what size pants I wear. Furthermore, a size 6 jean, which is typically made for a 28-inch waist, can vary 5 inches within the size. And this kind of sizing discrepancy is especially acute in dress wear. You see, 38 to 42% of women return an article of clothing they buy online, compared to 25 to 30% of men. And the most commonly returned item is a dress, which I guess makes sense. A size 8 in dress wear today is the same size as a 16 was in 1958. Many of us are familiar with Dante's 9 circles of hell. However, I'm here to tell you there is a 10th, lesser known circle specifically designed for pants with fake pockets. I try on a pair of pants, they have fake pockets, doesn't matter how cute they are, I won't buy them. I could stand up here and rant for an obscenely long amount of time about how passionate I am about pockets. I'm gonna try to spare you the worst of it. In the age of iPhones, small, shallow, and non-existent pockets are a huge turnoff, and yet they're still on the market. In an article by Today, writer Emery Roberts cites the first female pocket as really more of a cinch sack that was worn underneath the massive and forgiving folds of women's dresses in the 1600s. However, with the rise of the Victorian ideal of a small defined waistline, the clunky pocket was exchanged for a small reticule that didn't actually hold anything and functioned as more of a status symbol that said, I'm wealthy enough for my husband to handle all of my finances and affairs. My grandmother was a single mom and a school teacher in the 70s, and oftentimes she would have to wear a jacket or a sweater to school and then hunt down another female teacher to zip her dress up for her. She couldn't do it herself. The zipper was in the back. Long ago, women had maids to help them into the corset. But when the zipper took off in about 1913, it was placed in the backs of dresses, meaning that unless you're a contortionist, you're gonna need the help of a friend or a sister or a mother or a husband to help get you ready in the morning. Now these days, I'd like to be a little bit more optimistic about the fashion industry. I don't think there are big corporate men twisting their mustaches saying, oh yes, let's oppress the women today. it's trend, it's cosmetic, and it's not impossible to find side zippers or buttons or designs that slip over your head. And the lack of pockets, well, that has more to do with the purse industry than it does with oppression. But think about all of those strong, independent women who needed help getting dressed this morning and are constantly concerned about the location of their purse. I went to Catholic school for about 10 years, where my skirt could only be 3 inches off the ground when kneeling. My shoes could only be black, white, brown, navy with one and only one accent color. No hats, no hoodies, no makeup, no nail polish. I know a thing or two about institutionalized modesty. Now, there's a few schools of thought regarding bodily coverings. First, you have the religious that says, treat your body like a temple, for you were created in the image and likeness of God. And then you have the precautionary that says, cover up or creepy old men are gonna ogle you. And then you have my personal favorite. It's too distracting for your classmates. Too distracting? My shoulders? The fact of the matter is, the school uniform is a device used to attain homogeny. Middle school journal writer David Comer explains that adolescents, ages 12 to 14, have the highest rates of self-esteem issues because they're the most focused on identity and self. He calls the school uniform the great equalizer that allows all of these students to focus more introspectively because they're not trying to keep up with the fashion trends of their peers. By age 15, when adolescent identity is more established, these students are ready to graduate and face the real world problem of what to wear, knowing that it's not what's on the outside that really matters. And this is true. I know from experience. Starting in about 5th grade, I had acne on my face that was so terrible it eventually required professional help. But you can't wear makeup at St. Maria Goretti. So my mom told me, you're gonna have to own it. And I learned to. I focused on sports and academics, my friends, and volunteering, and I didn't let the state of my face bother me because I didn't have any control over that. And eventually I realized it wasn't what I looked like on the outside that defined me. It was who I was on the inside. What would your middle school experience have been like if you had come to that conclusion just a little bit sooner? So the next time you're standing in front of your mirror feeling like a mean girl and you just want to say, oh my gosh, I hate my hips, or my pores are so huge, remember, you don't have an overabundance of control over those things. But what you do have control over are your thoughts, your ideas, your opinions, your emotions. Value comes from within. And it's something that ill-fitting pants and fake pockets and garish plaids do not have the power to detract from.